Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Brotel. Today's inheritance spotlight is my boy Roy. I'm going to briefly go over pros and cons, then into a few builds that I had in mind. The first build is going to be a budget build, which is just a skill set that has minimum changes to the default kit. Usually I just fill in the empty slots. If I do change a default skill, it's only going to be at most one skill. This is the last of the two requested heroes from a couple weeks ago, so I need you guys to vote for the next two heroes for this series. You can find the straw poll in the description, and I'll even pin it in the comments. Roy is a tanky little guy. His weapon Binding Blade grants him a couple stats in defense and resistance only when he is attacked. I would rather have had it be distant counter, but unfortunately that is not the case. The effect goes really well with his balanced stats, as he can tank both physical and magical enemies fairly well. His base speed being at 31 is at a really bad spot where you can't double a lot of heroes, so summoning a plus speed version of Roy is really important. Lastly, his default skills are okay, but none of them are too useful for his more optimal builds. First off is his budget build. You can use this for any IVs, but Roy will get the best results with plus speed and minus resistance. There will be slight changes in skills for other IVs, and I'll be sure to mention them. Roy has balanced stats and becomes tankier whenever he gets attacked during the enemy phase because of Binding Blade's effect. What you want to do with Roy is bait and counter. After baiting an enemy and countering attacking, sealed defense will proc, reducing the enemy's defense by 7, which will allow Roy to finish them off on the following player phase. I include threat and speed, which will make Roy become even more advantageous against any enemies within 2 spaces from him. If you have a Roy that isn't plus speed, then you can opt for Swordbreaker in the B slot. Plus defense minus resistance would be the best IVs for Swordbreaker. He's going to be slower, so Swordbreaker becomes a lot more useful. Triangle Adept allows him to counter all the greens, and Swordbreaker will allow him to fight fast sword types. In the special slot for this particular build, the only specials that I can see being useful are Moonbow, Luna, and maybe Noontime. If your Roy has a negative IV and something other than resistance, then I can see Iceberg doing well. Glacies being at 4 charge is a lot more debatable. I think 3 charge is the sweet spot for him, but Moonbow's low 2 charge cooldown is always a safe choice. You can get Moonbow off of a 4-star Odin or Paula, and Threat and Speed off of a 4-star Navarre or Selena. Total SP for both of these skills is 975 SP. Okay, so we are still focusing on trying to make Roy an enemy phase unit. Positive speed and minus resistance are still the go-to IVs. Triangle Adept is not really that optimal for Roy. You want to swap it out for Fury. The extra speed, defense, and resistance are going to help him a little bit defensively. Let's do some comparisons. If we keep all the skills the same but have Triangle Adept on, Roy's results on offense is 31 wins and 7 losses. On defense, 14 wins and 13 losses. And how about results with Fury? 45 wins and 3 losses on offense, 14 wins and 3 losses on defense. The 3 enemies he gets one-rounded by are Abel, Cordelia, and Sully. If you put Roy on a defensive tile, he can actually tank the whole cast. That's right, he gets one-rounded by nobody. Abel and Cordelia will leave him at 1 HP. Renewal synergizes well with Fury's 6 self-damage and gives him a bit of self-sustain. You can choose to use Ardent Sacrifice instead of Swap to heal allies and restore the HP back with Renewal, but I felt like Roy will always be in the front line, so you won't have time to do that. Noontime is the special I chose for him. Combine that with Renewal and that will give Roy a ton of sustain, so he can continue to tank more enemies. Lastly, Threat and Speed or Threat and Attack are the best defensive options in the C slot. 1 3-star and 4 4-stars at minimum. I really like this build, so I'm happy to see that there's no 5 stars required, but it's still expensive. Total SP is going to be 2,355. Here's the last build. I'm going to continue utilizing Binding Blade's effect, but unlike the last build, this one is more of an aggressive or offensive approach. Best IVs are going to be plus attack and minus resistance. The result for this build on the enemy phase is 83 wins and 14 losses. We are going to give him what he should have had, which is distant counter. Combo that with quicker post and Roy will become a great unit to use as a tank to kill not only melee enemies but ranged enemies as well. Moonbow is quite important as it helps him 1-round KO 19 more dudes. After the first fight, Roy will most likely be out HP range to use quicker post, so use reciprocal aid to heal him back up to full, and in order to use quicker post again for the second time. C slot is flexible. You can choose between one of the threatened skills again or some type of buff. It really just depends on what you need on your team and how you plan on using this version of Roy. Make sure to put Roy on defensive tiles. His results increase to 87 wins and 4 losses. He only gets 1-round KO'd by Abel, Azura, Cordelia, and Lindy. He still survives versus Reinhardt, which is really dope. This build is going to be quite the expensive one. Distant counter and quicker post are going to require 5 stars. Total SP is at least 1,755. You still need fill in the C slot, so that'll cost you about 525 more SP. Roy isn't the best thing out there, but he is a really popular hero just because he's Roy. He is a lot better now with the addition of defensive tiles. The defensive tiles make him one of the more tankier red infantry types out there, as he can tank both physical and magical damage fairly well. Hope you guys enjoyed my build for Roy. Don't forget to vote for the next 2 heroes. Remember, I'll be taking the 2 with the most votes. Check out the Inheritance playlist on my channel if you want to see what other heroes I've done. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.